Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to the continuation of my preview for Europa Universalis 4. In this episode, we're going to talk about national ideas. Now, these are somewhat related to technology, but if I can backtrack for a bit, one of the themes throughout this entire series of videos is the concept of meaningful and interesting decisions. And one of the things that bothered me about previous iterations of Europa Universalis, and in fact many of the sort of Paradox Grand Strategy games, is the lack of a kind of a branching technology tree. Because I love 4X games, for example, Master of Orion, I like strategy games like Civilizations. These things are great, and they tend to involve tech trees. You have to choose whether you're going for this technology or that technology, and in some cases, like Master of Orion, you're choosing one technology over another one. So it's an interesting and meaningful choice, and it can change the game that you're playing dramatically. Now in EU, the technology development has been mostly linear, and of course that makes a certain amount of sense because we're simulating sort of actual history and things kind of progress in a logical order. And I'm not saying that a technology tree would be right in Europa. However, it was always kind of sad that there's not much in the way of decisions other than what to prioritize now. Do I want more naval power now, or do I want more trade power or ground military, that sort of thing? Well, in EU4, the actual technology is still relatively linear, but what has been added in is the concept of these national ideas. Now, these existed in EU3 as well, but they have been expanded dramatically, and I feel like they are more significant and meaningful and interesting this time around. So, how does it work? Well, every few levels of your administrative technology, you will unlock a new slot for national ideas. This happens at level 4, 7, 10, and then it's somewhere between 3 to 5. Every 3 to 5 administrative tech level, you will unlock a new slot for this. And then once you've unlocked a slot, you can click on that slot, and you get a wide array of national ideas that you can select. They're divided into administrative, diplomatic, and military idea categories. And they contain, somewhere between 5 to 7 or 8 different ideas. That's definitely an area where I think that you could definitely see some additions going forward as they release expansions. There's plenty of room for this to add more of these types of things. It's going to be very easy to plug in and certainly highly moddable. So you click on that slot, then you select one of these ideas. And selecting the idea is free, but you can't undo it. Once you've locked in on an idea, it's in there. And what's interesting is the idea by itself doesn't give you anything. Selecting this idea slot or filling this idea slot doesn't give you anything by itself. But the idea has multiple levels within it. And when you reach every 300 power points in the appropriate category, you can unlock the next level of this national idea. So, for example, in my game as Muscovy, I ended up, I really needed a lot of administrative power, mostly to core and things like that. Stability boosters was pretty important as well. I also wanted a lot of military power to increase my my pure military technology. But I ended up with a huge surplus of diplomatic power points. And so, despite the fact that I was playing a military-type game, I decided to use my first national idea slot on a diplomatic idea. And the reason I did that is because I had the surplus of points, so I knew I'd be able to level this up pretty easily. It gave me a place to sort of dump these points that I wouldn't use as heavily otherwise. On the other hand, if you're playing on more of a coastal nation, for example Portugal, which is doing a lot of trade and a lot of colonization, you're going to be hurting for diplomatic points because they tend to get used up with more of the things you do, but also you need more diplomatic national ideas because they give you the benefits to trade, the benefits to colonization, and so on and so forth. I specifically took the diplomatic idea called Diplomatic Ideas. Maybe the names need to be tweaked, I don't know. And what it did is give me extra diplomats, which we will talk about how these agents work in an upcoming video. It also gave me much faster fabrication of claims, which I thought was going to be pretty cool, and a few other little features like that. So not only was it a way to spend points I didn't need quite as much, but it actually did dovetail pretty well into my overall strategy. Many people like the militaristic ideas, which, so it's a trade-off there, because what happens is every 300 military power points, you can spend that to unlock an idea, but that means you're no longer saving up the 4-ish hundred points to unlock the next tech level. So the trade-off there is you're not unlocking sort of better military units anymore. Instead, you are unlocking just general bonuses to your military units overall. And that's, so there's offensive ideas, which will give you more sort of like shock fire benefits. There's defensive ideas that make your forts much, much better and just give you a better stance if you're defending against people. There are quantity ideas, which just increases your manpower dramatically and the ability to hire more forces. And then there's quality ideas, which just make your troops better, but so you don't get more troops, you just get them better. There's the aristocracy idea, which makes your cavalry much, much better, in addition to a few other things. Most of these are pretty complex, or not complex, but they affect multiple different areas. There's, in the diplomatic stuff, there's the ones that give you extra colonists, greater trade range, greater trade power. Administrative, the specifics don't come to mind, but again, I'm going to try to put some screenshots behind me so you can read some of those. And of course, all the numbers are subject to change. So, so in addition to going up in these levels, once you've completed your national idea, once you've gotten maybe all 6 levels, I think there's 6, it also, each one of them has sort of a capstone ability that gives you. So there's a lot of potential there, and what you're doing is you're really customizing your nation quite a bit. You can play the same nation twice in a row, and then depending on who you decide to invade or not invade, but also which national ideas you take, will lead to a nation that feels quite a bit different. In addition to those that you can choose, there is this sort of built-in cultural set of national ideas that show up at the top of that page. Now, those you don't get to choose, but they just give it to you free. Every 3 national idea sort of levels you put in, it doesn't all have to be in one slot. So let's say you've unlocked, you're at, you've gone up to administrative level 10, which gives you 3 national idea slots. So you've got 3 national idea slots, and you've put 1 level here and 2 levels in this one, and you haven't put any levels in this one yet. Well, that's still 3. That is enough to unlock your first sort of cultural national bonus. And what that is depends very heavily on what nation you're playing in. So, for example, as Muscovy, the first level of the Russian national idea was, I believe, 10% increased tax rate, which is quite good because, again, this is not a very trade-heavy nation, so I'm really reliant on the tax to fill my treasury and maintain my armies, for example. I think the second level was a huge boost to manpower, for example, and so on and so forth. Whereas if you're playing as Venice, you're going to get a lot of trade power. If I was playing as Portugal, I think it was a lot of trade range and maybe a free colonist in there. I don't remember the specifics, and of course these things are very prone to change. But so there's sort of an inherent flavor in each nation you play based on those sort of cultural national ideas, but then still a lot of room to customize it. And I think it's a really good balance between the 2 types of categories. So I'm very pro national idea system. I think some of the names tend to be a little duplicative and hard to follow, like, initially, because it's like you've got, like I have the national ideas at the top, and then I can also pick national ideas, and there's the diplomatic ideas, and one of them is called diplomatic ideas. We'll see what happens going forward, but that is a pretty minor nitpick for a system that is otherwise pretty sexy. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.